Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabe. It is my pleasure to be the session coordinator for the next two clinics that will be back-to-back in this room. I'm pleased to announce that this session is also sponsored by the Florida chapter of the American School Band Directors Association. It's now my pleasure to introduce the president of the Florida chapter and also a past president of the ASBDA. Please welcome to the podium, Mr. Joe McConn.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are so pleased that you are here today to experience this wonderful series of clinics. On behalf of the American School Band Directors Association, we have been working on this series for the last several years and have seen them grow exponentially to the point where we get to have it involved in AD. And we're so thankful for that. We're thankful for the Florida Bandmasters Association for working with us and allowing us to work with them and be a part of their sessions at this conference and at all the FMEA conferences up to this point. It's a wonderful partnership. We would like to also thank Dr. John Southall, the clinics chair for FMEA, for helping us with logistics and making sure that we can get 700 people into a room that doesn't hold 50. So let's give a big hand to Dr. John Southall. The sessions today, just a little bit of housekeeping. They are two sessions jammed together as to one long one. We do know that there's session breaks in between, and some of you may need to exit between sessions and before to go to another session, and others may need to come in to see session 2, to see part 2 of how to fix it. We totally understand that. We'll break for a few minutes in between, but not much time, because we want to be as concurrent as we can and make use of our time as best we can. So we have a wonderful group here in front of us, the Apopka High School demonstration under the direction of Mr. Jeremy Langford. We thank them for being here today. And it is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you our lead clinician for these series of concerts. Please welcome Mr. Wansley.
It is an honor for us to be here, and we're just here to hope you enjoy it. We've had some great success with these the last couple of years, and your attendance makes us want to do this more and more. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Dr. Southall and on behalf of the American School Bandmasters Association. Again, we appreciate you being here. We're going to start off with our first section. Will be Gabe, and if you read any of our postings, he's going to work with you on basic tone and tonality, but also some musicianship as well. So let's please welcome Gabe Fielder.
So the purpose of the first part of this clinic is just to address the second thing you should probably be doing, other than attendance, when you set up in front of your band, and that is an ensemble warm-up. For clarification's sake, we're going to define warm-up as what you do to get the instrument up to operating temperature, some basic listening and intonation exercises, and generally something pretty consistent that you would be doing during the first part of your class period, which is not to be confused with fundamentals. Those are the specific things that you do, scales, chord studies, that type of thing. That might be specific to the pieces that you're playing. The reason why I like to separate the difference between warm-ups and fundamentals is because a warm-up gives you an opportunity to hear basically the same thing from day to day, and then over the course of the year, monitor your ensemble. And my thought process is that warm-up should be something that makes your job easier. So what you're going to see are some familiar exercises, I hope, for most of you. I'm not up here to invent the wheel, I'm just going to put my own spin on it. And here are the exercises that we're going to be starting with. Just by show of hands, how many of you are familiar when I say the remember to? This will go easy. So we're going to start with that one, and Mr. Langford has agreed to conduct the band for us. And we're just going to take a look at what that might look like in a typical ensemble setting, and then some suggested changes. And some of you might choose to do it that way, as conducted, like Mr. Langford was just doing. But I do have a suggestion that instead of doing it as conducted, that you upgrade that exercise to get the most bang for the buck. So we're going to do a little exercise I call with my kids called hot tea. I want everybody in the room to say the word hot on count 4 of a 4 beat measure. Okay, 1, 2, hot. Good. Say T on the downbeat of the next measure. Hot tea. Okay, now we're going to take the word hot and we're going to invert it. Let's see what you guys come up with that before. How many of you are familiar with that one, incidentally? Okay, very few. This is exciting. Shout out to Mark Gabe for showing me this about 15 years ago. So we're going to invert the word hot and we're going to clean up our attack, which is the word tea. So here we go. 1, 2, tea. Okay, and with kids, you'll get a mixed result like that too. By invert, I mean this. So with me, 2, 3, tea. Did you hear the nice unison sound that we got throughout the ensemble? So if you will pulse your Remington exercise out, about 60 beats per minute, and you'll add that in there, then daily what you're doing is an exercise to clean up the attack. So that's point 1. Point 2, how many of you have ever experienced the vapor lock release, where the sound just absolutely stops? And you're like, wow, that's a good release. I would love to just bottle that and use that every time I finish a march. Right? Okay? Breathe in to release. A concept that I didn't hear about until a few years ago. I thought, wow, this is a great concept. So we can put this in Remington, we're going to upgrade it that way. And so then after a sustained note, just breathe in, release. So what I'd like you guys to do is just sing a nice da for 4 counts. And then on the next downbeat, breathe in as though you were preparing to play another note. Here we are. Okay, so starting together. Instant stop. So breathe in to release, breathe in to initiate, all prescribed and all metered out. And you get something a little like this. Now there's some more changes that we made to this exercise, but this band has not had an opportunity to warm up. So I'm going to give them a little bit more time here. And you're going to actually get to hear the change in ensemble sonority as we go through some of these exercises. So the Remington 2.0 with some updates. Most of the tuning that we do in a band setting is interval tuning. So if you start with an interval tuning approach right at the beginning of your rehearsal, then you're getting that open fifth. Now, the band is exactly where they need to be in the warm-up process. I'm going to direct their listening. Just then, they were playing the exercise. We're going to direct their listening to the opposing note and see if you can hear the subtle change that occurs in the ensemble sonority just by pointing in the other direction. We'll do a sample. Give me that first note, guys, and just continue doing whatever you were doing before. Don't change your listening. This is for hot tea. So this is going to be challenging because we're not evenly split. But B flat folks, I want you to listen to the F. F folks, I want you to listen to B flat. We'll make a quick change here. Ready? With your hand. Just 4 beats. So you heard a subtle change in the sonority. You also heard the flute, the individual flute player. Real quickly work that in. How many of you are familiar with the tuning drums from years ago? They were floating around Florida about 15 years ago. There was this CD that came out, and it was just a series of these drums, but it was with a reinforced fifth. And so when you were hearing the fundamental, you were trying to tune the fundamental against the unison, you were also hearing a fifth, which makes life a lot easier. I do that all the time on my harmony director keyboard. I almost never tune a unison. I'll always tune the unison plus the fifth above it so that things lock in a little quicker. Another bonus of this exercise is if you're doing it this way, you're going to be experiencing quicker tuning, quicker adjustments. Now, we talked about the addition of listening concepts. It's not on this slide, but it's on my slide. Addition of listening concepts in this exercise. I think we're going to do a group exercise together. Overtone listening. I'm going to have you guys sing a B flat. We're going to move through vowel sounds. We're going to sing, we're going to hum a B flat, move ah, o to oo. And when we get to oo, because you guys are all music educators who used to be in tune, we're going to hear what sounds like a women's chorus in the next room, singing an F concert an octave and a half above that. How many of you are familiar with this? Okay, so this will be interesting for some of you guys. Can I have a D flat from one of the players? Concert, 3 fingers C for the second. Can I have you guys on that note? Okay. Ah. Back off while you're listening for it. Continue generating energy, tonal energy, especially our bass voices. Raise your hand when you hear that F concert overtone. And I very quickly just have the ladies in the room shift to an F concert. This is what you're listening for. And everybody back on B flat. Now raise your hand when you hear it. Okay, now we're all familiar with the Remington. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that exercise. You're going to sing the Remington. And instead of listening to the fundamental, you're going to pay attention to how that overtone goes. Ready? Yes. How many heard it? All right. So as you're ramping up this exercise through the year, this warm-up sequence, you're adding more and more material for your kids, improving sonority, improving deeper listening, improving that interval listening that you really hope to have your band doing. Because when we're playing a piece, there are unisons, but unisons should really be a byproduct of the listening to the intervals that we're doing for the ensemble. And I'll show you that on the slide in just a little bit. So, Remington 2.0. Oh, the breathing exercise modification. What they're doing up here, you can read on the slide, is just an out to empty, 3 counts, hot T, and then doing that each cycle. Right? Okay, so now that we talk about every single part, I'm going to add a little bonus material because this group was really getting it towards the end. We're going to hear a C concert overtone that sound like a high French horn in this ensemble as they're playing this Remington exercise. Pay attention. Get a C concert out of the flute. This is the pitch you're listening. It will be in the air. It'll sound like a high French horn. You play about 2 cycles of that first, Mr. Lincoln. Now, then you guys have to do your job and make sure you're cross-listening. F's to B flats and vice versa. Otherwise, that overtone will pop out. kids to the point of intonation where they hear overtones and are listening for them during a warm-up, then you're talking about advanced stuff. This warm-up series is simple enough that you can start using it with your 7th graders and then just build basic concepts. But it also has elements of it that you can add some of these advanced thought processes. And if you're doing this daily, it takes about 5 minutes to go through the whole thing. And you can monitor the progression of your ensemble. Something simple enough to be memorized. Something simple enough to be memorized so they don't have to have sheet music in front of them. You're eliminating one of the variables. And you just get their ears into the room. We'll talk more about what to do with ears after we go through the next 2 parts of this. These are very simple. I took these from the Basic Training for Concert Band series. It's Andy Dubert recommended it to me. Shout out to Andy, wherever he is. It was great. I think that's the series that Harmony in B flat came from. How many of you are familiar with Harmony in B flat? Okay, folks, you see who the hands were raised. If you don't know about Harmony in B flat, ask them. Get their email address and have them email it to you, because it's a great chord progression that you can use as part of the warm-up series. But Basic Training for Concert Band is what these next 2 exercises came from. And we're going to move on to this, just a very simple 4-note scale. What we're aiming to take care of, and Mr. Lincoln, you can just go ahead and start. With this exercise, is we're starting to fit the kids into the pyramid. We've done a nice unison listening. We've done an open 5th listening. Now we're fitting kids into the McConn. And that is the initiation. How many of you would say you've heard of bands initiate tongue heavy in your lifetime? Tongue heavy. I had the honor of interning with Paula Thornton when she was at Buell's, and she brought something back from Midwest, I think. It was breathe, set, compress, release, support. Just a whole sequence of activities that occur just before the initiation of the tongue. So it's where you would breathe in, and do this with me. Breathe in, say your embouchure, compress your air column, and then release with your tongue, following through with support. Now, if you're thinking a D instead of a T syllable, then you're going to get that nice initiation sound. I want you guys to do that on a B flat. I want you to do that just simply on a B flat. We'll go step by step, and we'll see if we can't eliminate that harsh beginning that so many of our bands have back home when we're initiating a note. And then you can add that into this exercise. So every 2 beats, they're thinking breathe, step, compress, release, and then follow through. So breathe, set embouchure, compress air column. Now this is going to be shotgun, spatter shot at first, but you'll get the idea in here in just a second. Okay, now do that all at once. Breathe, set, press the air column, and then see if you can eliminate the harsh right at the beginning. That's better. That's better. So that's one thing that you can work into this descending exercise. And it's just a concept you can throw at the kids to refine. So our whole warm-up sequence is something that should just kind of be an automated thing. You're practicing attack, you're practicing release, you're doing the breathing exercise, you're listening. Now we get to the blend and transparency portion. And so all this is a staggered entrance on B flat. But again, each group listening to the group that plays prior. Layering in. and why the bass clarinet, I'm going to address now. So in Florida, my understanding growing up in the state is that your band can sound like one of two things: pipe organ, or, as Jack used to say, sound of 4 instruments: flute, horn, euphonium, tuba. So basically your flute and your conifer brass. Right? So those are your two options. If you have a robust enough low reed section, then you can get that nice low flat of the low reeds that's going to give you the pipe organ sound that you want. So in an ideal situation, we're going to do this warm-up, and we're going to base the core of our band sound on the bass clarinet. That's what a lot of the Japanese groups do. And this, again, came from that basic training for concerting. So we're going to go through this exercise. Their job is just to listen to the group prior. Okay? By minimizing their responsibility to listening to one other section, we're going to create more transparency and blend of sounds. So the idea would be that we're working intonation the whole time, and in an ensemble setting, you're going to be commenting on the intonation variables that you're hearing up here. In a clinic, there's not enough time to do that. But by having the responsibility of each person listening to the group before them, you're starting to create the blend that you want. Now, transparency, I have a couple of thoughts on that, and I'm just going to tag onto them. I hear bands sometimes, and they have that white noise hiss as their single reed section in the core of their sound. Right? On your heads, if you know what I mean. You listen to them, you're in your band room, they're a week out from MPA, and you hear that sound right in the middle of the core of their sound. And then I hear them a week later on stage in MPA, and it's gone. It's just totally gone. My thought is, and this is Dave Fielder's theory on transparency, is that the stage tends to absorb that white noise, but eliminate the overtones. We dealt with overtones earlier. So white noise is eliminating the overtones, but it's not being communicated out to the audience, which makes a blurry band sound. You'd still be successful in bringing out lines and having good intonation, but as long as there's some sort of uncharacteristic sound in the room, you're not going to get the transparency you want. If I got a B flat again, and you guys singing on ooh, I'm going to point, I want to have everybody over 50 shift to E, as everybody else is singing ooh. And immediately, I mean, you know, this is the equivalent of cows going moving grass is green, but it's a good thing to think about when you're going through the same routine data. So, okay, ooh. Everybody over 50 E. Right? And from up here, I can tell you that just muddy the waters. Thank you. You're doing great. All right, so bonus material, which this one I'm very excited about. Skip this. For those of us who just don't feel it, man, when you say to us we have to play a line of music like a prancing pony on a rainbow cloudy day, I don't get it. You know, when you're 13, 14-year-old boys in the room, they probably don't get it either. But if you want to teach kids musicality, you break it down to a simple little square. There's really only 5 options. Dr. Carmichael said a couple of years ago that composers expect us to know the subtle manipulations that they intended in both speed and intensity of their music in order to be musical. So instead of telling somebody to be musical, tell them what you want to get and then explain. You want to generate excitement. Yeah, it's speed and intensity. Let's do that. We're going to sing 8 quarter note B flats on Da. We're going to generate excitement. So we're going to start slow and soft. Ready? I love this front row, man. A lot of intensity and excitement. Okay, so the opposite of that would be removing speed, removing intensity. So let's start where we are. They just don't romanticize it, they just do nothing. So that's just a little bonus material, thoughts about musicality, how you can explain it to kids. Ask them, hey, is this calming or is this getting more exciting? And then they should know the variables. It's pretty easy. And then listening. Give their thoughts on listening. Number 2 might be a little shocking. As you're browsing through this, I'm going to tell you why I think McConn. I'm going to refer you back to my comments that I heard from Jack Crew years ago. Flute, horn, euphonium, tuba, conical brass with a nice flute overtone sitting in there. That's the sound, the overall sonority and tone quality that you want from a band. So if you're constantly encouraging your kids to listen to lower conical instruments, maybe that's the saxophones in the woodwind choir. Right? You're getting their ears into the ensemble, tuning those intervals, and really listening inside of what's going on. One additional bonus material that I want to give you is this. And this is just something that I stopped doing years ago. Instead of saying to the important line, bring that out. You know, you got the important line, I want to hear that. Stop, reveal that important line to your kids. Have them write on their music what to listen for at that moment. And then you've created a portable, balanced blend of transparency that you can move on to any single stage, anywhere. You don't have to worry about the variables of the environment. If you've trained your kids throughout the performance of a piece, where to direct their ears, because the balance will take care of itself. A lot of that idea can be translated right back into the simple warm-up exercise. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, those of you that really know me, you know I believe in diversity. And that's how come my big groups like this. Look at all the diversity. Isn't that great? I think it's just fantastic that we have groups like this that we can utilize. Because I bet this band looks a lot like a lot of your bands as far as the diversity is concerned. Next, we're going to have Everett McConn. He's at Fort Clark Middle School in the Gainesville area. If you have the score, he's going to be doing Quintus. How to fix Quintus.
Good afternoon. I once heard a preacher say, I feel a bit, he was talking to a bunch of preachers, he said, I feel a bit like a lion in a den of Daniels. And if you're not familiar with that analogy, you can go Google the story of Daniel and the lion's den and you'll understand what he's talking about. But I have to say that I kind of feel the same way, that I'm extremely honored to be up here and have the opportunity to speak to you. I was asked to take a piece of grade 2 music off the FBA list and identify some of the problems on it and tell you how I would approach those problems. So I looked through everything in my library and I cannot tell you exactly why I picked this piece, but I like it. And there's a number of things that this piece can be, that you can learn from it. The piece is Quintus, as was Ivan said. It's written by Larry Clark, and I'm just wondering, Ivan said Larry might be in the audience since he tends to write this. Is Larry in here somewhere? Back there? Stand up for us, Larry, so we can see. There he is. Okay. Quintus is a grade 2 piece, and it's based on the interval of a perfect fifth, and it's also based on the Lydian scale. And you kind of go, well, why is it called Quintus? Well, in earlier times, Quintus was what they called the name of the 5th church mode. And we now recognize that as the Lydian scale. And you can study your own research on why, even though it's the 4th degree of a major scale, why is it called the 5th church mode? I'll let you do that stuff. Quintus presents an opportunity to teach a lot of different concepts and a variety of different basic skills. Now I'm going to talk to you as though you are all middle school band directors in your first or second year of teaching. So I don't know that anything I'm going to say is going to be a great revelation to those of you who've been teaching a little bit longer than that. But it gives you the opportunity to teach major and perfect intervals. It gives you an opportunity to introduce your students to the concept of modes and how you identify modes, how you can play modes, the modes that are come from a major scale, derived from a major scale. You can teach them how to do an accent. A lot of things, we were talking about how to attack notes up here. how to play an accent, how to build pyramids. When I talk about pyramids right now, I'm not talking about a pyramid of sound and a gut pyramid. I'm talking about the ones where you have a variety of different entrances layered on top of each other. There's also a great concept of an ostinato that kind of runs through this piece. And of course, as always, balance and blend. The first thing we want to do is we're just going to talk about playing an accent. Which way do I go, Kelly? Did I get it right? Okay. So we're going to take a little approach like that. You guys will look at that sheet and some of you standing there. Okay? Remember, lower voices are going to play an E-flat concert, and the upper voices are going to play a B-flat concert, and you can decide which one of those things you fit into, all right? So we're just going to play it, hold it for 8 beats there, at a nice forte dynamic. But first of all, before we do that, what I want you to do is I want you to play an accent. Play those same notes, but you're just going to play an accent and hit it nice with a nice hard smack of tongue. Real hard. Ready? So it's not going to be pretty. Ready? 1, 2, and 3, and. One more time. Try to hit the right note this time. 2, back there. 1. That's all right. I was doing the same thing. 1 and 2, and ready, and. Actually, it's kind of good. I'm going to sound like that. So anyway, all right. So it's kind of hard and harsh there. A few years ago, actually quite a few years ago, my youngest son came home from school one day. He was part of the Bugles program, and they had an adjunct teacher there named Wansley, who was a trombone player, teacher, and did their jazz band. My son was a trombone player. He said, "Dad, you'll never guess what Mr. Wansley taught us today." He says, "He told us that an accent was simply a fast decrescendo." I thought, well, that sounds cool. I think I may try that at my school. So this is what we're going to kind of work on right now. Just give me a solid forte, not an ugly attack, just a solid forte on those same 2 notes we just did. We're going to hold it for 8 counts. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to decrescendo for 8 beats down to 10 key. Ready? 1 and 2. Start forte. What's going to happen to the pitch flutes when you get softer? Yeah, it's going to sag a little bit there. I like that word sag. I just learned that about sag. Okay, now look at the next line here, okay? We're going to hold it for 2 counts and then decrescendo during that time down to our main key, okay? So by the time we hit beat 3, we should be in key. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready and. Okay, next one. We're going to decrescendo on 1 beat. 2 and ready and. Okay, the next one. Okay, half a beat. Ready and. This don't get quite as soft this time. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Alright, so that's our accent. Now we're going to transfer that over to Mr. Clark wrote a beautiful pyramid starting right here at the beginning. And it's based on the interval of a perfect fifth. It starts out E flat, B flat, F, C, G, and D. And I think that's on my next slide here. Yeah. Okay. So, the first thing we want to do is we're going to count out loud using numbers where they come in. So, you know how to do that? Right? Not going to go too fast. This piece is marked at 144. We're going to go way under that for right now. So just say the count you come in on and hold it out. Nice accent on it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Loud. 1. Ready? Here we go. No fear. 1, 2. You're not singing it yet. 2 and ready and 1, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, now you low voices, you gotta come louder because right now the flutes are making us look bad. Okay. All right, one more time. Let's do the same thing, right? We're gonna do the same thing this time on a syllable da. 1 and 2 and da and go. play your entrance one note at a time as I give it to you. Everybody comes in on 1, then others come in on 3, then others come in on 4, so on and so forth. Here we go. Ready? Here's beat 1. Horns up. 2. Going to do an accent as you hit it. 2, beat 1, go. There's 3. There's 1. Here's 1 from the beginning, ready, and 1. There's 3. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. 1. Here's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Cool. Think you can sing it? Think so? All right, here we go. Ready? Come on, low voices. 1 and 2 and ready and sing. Yeah. Okay. Now we got a lot more time. We work on that a little bit and get it in our ears a little bit better that way. But now what we're going to do is we're just going to play it in time, slowly, and then we'll gradually speed it up. Here we go, ready? In time, play. 2 and 3 and. Let's try it again, a little faster. Now, I wish my middle school picked it up quite that fast. Okay? Right. Now, that's basically what we want to do here as far as talking about building a pyramid. Now, the next problem I'd like to address in this particular piece is the problem of an ostinato. Okay? Now, the first time I sight read this with my band, it was a train wreck. Okay? People changing notes at different times and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, this little ostinato runs through a majority of the piece. There's a section in the middle where it's much more smooth and legato and melodious there. But through much of the piece, this ostinato runs through. And the key is, how do you get it together? And then how do you get it to stay together when you get it up to the fast tempo? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to count it out loud. They're going to do their fingerings, and let's play the first note, and I want you to sing it as you count it. Just play the first note starting at measure 5, clarinets only. Measure 5, clarinets only. Ready? Play your first note and play. Is that here? Okay. Now everybody else, you're only going to play when you have the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. You're only going to sing your part level when you come in on that. Okay, when your part says that. So everything else you're going to let go. We don't want to hear the boom, boom, boom. We don't want to hear that. We just want you to do it when you have the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Now, when you have that place, that one little measure, two little measures here with those quarter, half notes, they're going to run on through that. Okay, here we go. We probably won't go that far. Everybody got that pitch in your head? Okay, we're just going to count it. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready and count.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3.
Come on, second third.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Keep going. 1, 2, and then we have the ball. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Why are the clarinets not stronger than the okay, come on, guys. So punch it out here, ready? All right, start 15. Ready? 15? 15, right on. 1 and 2 and 15, go. Keep going. Louder. All together, go. 1.
2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2.
Okay, now, we can go on all the way through here, but I don't want to bore you with that, okay? So, that's the first thing I would do. Then I would say, okay, now we're going to translate that into articulation. We're going to do a little intermediate step. We're going to use the syllable D, D-I. Keep it nice and light, okay? Let's go back to number 5. Okay, play your notes again. First notes, number 5, clarinets, 2 and 5, and go. Sing on D. 1 and 2 and D and go. Come on, don't be afraid to miss it. Good. A little more. A little more. Get ready over here. Trombone, baritone. Don't flash. Keep going. And a flute clarinet. All right, now, so we do it that way. And as you can hear, there's some places where it tends to rush. So probably what I would do is I would also have like the tambourine player playing at the same time. I meant to have her do that, and I forgot to put that in there. So now we're going to play it, okay? And I just want you coming in whenever you have that little ostinato part, okay? Anytime you have more than 4 eighth notes, you're going to play, all right? So you got to count like crazy. One's up. Ready, 5. We're still not up to tempo yet. I might even start this with my middle school band a little slower, but we're going to go right here. 1. Everybody get your horns ready to go. 1 and 2 and 5 and go. Now, most likely they would not tongue it quite as nice as those guys are right now. We're going to get them to go just a little bit lighter still. Okay. So one of the things I talk to my clarinets about is my reed players, all my players, okay? If it's a reed player, it's top of the tip of the tongue to the bottom of the tip of the reed, okay? And then my brass players and flute players, tip of the tongue to the top of the teeth. Very light, just moving the tip of the tongue there, okay? Here we go, ready? Try it one more time. Let's pick it up just a little bit. And 2 and 3 and go. Thank you, Tim. Let's see you guys jumping in there. 5 bass clarinets, ready? We're starting 5 again. Make sure that 8th note lines up right with the end of 4. 1. Where are my bass clarinets? I'm talking to people over here and they're over here. In my band, they're over here. Sorry. You ready? 1 and 2 and 5 and go. 1 and 2 and sub and 5. Keep that subdivision point in your head. Okay, good. Now, once we get that nice and clean, which by the way, we will pick that up because that's not the one tempo yet, okay? Then over to measure 15, then we'll add the trumpets and the flute and clarinet, okay? Start right there at 15. Pick up to 15. Ready? Pick up to 15. No tubas yet. No dotted half notes. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3. thinking, go back, pick up the tempo, move it up a little bit. Quickly, how much time do I have? 5 minutes? Okay. I'm just going to point this out to you. I would take measure 23, where the trombone and baritone have the melody there, and then later on the horns join them at measure 27. I would again take that very slowly, kind of one note at a time, making sure they've got the pitches in their ear, and then gradually speed it up, and then fit that in with the ostinato that's going on over the top of that. Now, at 23, this melody and the trombone and the baritone is really somewhat of an inversion, to use Mr. Clark's words, in the preamble thing there, introduction. There's somewhat of an inversion of the melody that starts off in the flutes and those instruments back there at 5. Okay, let's see. Go over, please, to measure 47. Okay? And you're going to hear some more of this concept as you go through the workshop. I would like to encourage you, no matter what level you teach. You may think, well, this is the young band stuff, and so I'm not going to be doing the grade 5 and 6 stuff. Stay for the whole thing, because the concepts that are going to be taught in the next session by the other directors are going to be applicable all the way down to no matter what level they're teaching. All right, 47. 47 is where the kind of style of this piece changes a little bit, and you still keep the tempo moving, but it's very, very legato, very smooth, very connected. Up to that point, everything's nice and separated and kind of marked. All right, 47, what I want you guys to do, we're just going to play the, I don't think I have it. I don't have one of those. Okay? Yeah, okay. We're just going to play a half note. Whenever you have the half note, 2 quarters, half note, 2 quarters, or half note, 2 quarters, or 4 quarters, that's where you're going to play. Everybody else is going to get your horns up, be ready to come in there. Don't play the 2 whole notes tied together. Here, ready? 1 and 2, 47. In go, flutes. Okay, should have the first trumpet player with me also, right? Okay, sit nice and tall. 1 and 2. I think I also have a mouth player. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Here we go, one more time. Ready? 47. 1 and 2 and 3 and go. Hold that one. Good, now bones. Hold it, hold it. Okay, now, I said it here, I said, find the hidden music. The hidden music is the stuff that the composer just says shape the line, okay? There's things the music says, hey, do this, even though the composer didn't write it in there. So one thing you might try is adding some crescendos and decrescendos where they're not written. So what we're going to do is, and you can do several different things. You may not like what I'm going to have them do. I would just crescendo measure, decrescendo measure, crescendo measure, decrescendo measure, okay? Let's try that. Same people, the same thing, just passing it around. 47. Now this is our tune, this is which one you listen to when you're playing the whole note part. 1 and 2 and 47. Crescendo, down, go somewhere. Crescendo, down, and so on and so forth. Now, what I want you to do, I only want you to play when you have the 2 whole notes that are tied across the bar line, okay? And you're going to use the same shaping that we just did with the melody people here, right? So you're going to start a little softer than the forte, crescendo a little bit, crescendo with it. 1 and 2, and just about a whole note. Crescendo, hold it. Let's put it all together, okay? Now you guys with double whole notes, remember this. The melody shall always be heard, okay? The harmony shall always be heard, and that's what you're playing here, but never over the melody, right? So, let's try it. That, by the way, is a saying by Dean Castles, Here we go, ready? And I just learned it last Saturday. Here we go. 47. 1 and 2, 47. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time and your attentiveness. You can go to the website and find some other things that I put down on that piece and some notes that I passed out to you. And
Thanks so much. Someone in Kentucky 1800. So just a little basic information here. So Claire Groban, American composer, was considered I think we call him the nationalist composer. He used folk songs in his music, but also Aaron Copland and Charles Ives did the same thing. Here's some things that were happening in America in 1954. Kind of an interesting list. Kind of an interesting list of things that were happening in 1954. Just quickly scan that. So, as I was preparing to do this, I found out something very interesting. None of these folk songs originated in Kentucky. It just really kind of blew my mind. You know, because every time I've done this piece or rehearsed it with a band, I've always said, well, you know, these must be folk songs from Kentucky. But just quickly look at them. The first one, Promised Land, was written by a Baptist minister from England. But then when Groban put it together, he did add, I'll go in the list for a sailor. But look, from Georgia, okay? I'm sad and my lonely. I love the way they phrase this here. Contributed to a Dallas, Texas woman who got it from Tennessee folks. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool. And then Cindy, according to, you can read it there, originated in North Carolina. So it's kind of weird that's Kentucky 1800, but really none of the folk songs originated in Kentucky. Now, I think when we're playing music that involves folk songs, we should listen to these folk songs. So I've got a recommended listening list there, and who to listen to. So Promised Land, I'm Sad I'm Lonely. I'm Sad and My Lonely is really slow when you listen to the originals. It's really, really slow when you listen to the originals. So here's a micro form of the piece. Just a big, big explanation of the piece. And the keys next to it. I'm not going to read that to you. You can see it very quickly. And I think you can probably access all of this. I'm sure it's on the website that you can go and collect all this information. Next, here's the prominent rhythms that we find. The prominent rhythms that we find on this piece. Okay? I believe that we need to prepare these prominent rhythms. And so, also, I know some of you, when you're writing your lesson plans, you have to include some standards in those lesson plans. And so, here's some of the standards. I'm not going to repeat them or anything, but look them up. And these are kind of the standards that you can realize just by using this piece. But look at the very bottom there. I encourage you to pick the right literature, and standards are easier to achieve. Okay? It's always about the quality of the literature. So always make the quality of the literature, and I think if you'll do that, then you'll have no trouble realizing standards. So we have some warm-up possibilities. Incorporate different keys and scales and prominent rhythms as part of the warm-up. The warm-up time should be reinforced basic fundamentals, just like Gabe did at the beginning, and prepare for literature to be rehearsed that day. Now, the first thing I'm going to work on with you is balance. Here we go. All right, I'm afraid of heights. I don't ever, those of you that know me, I very rarely use a toe. Play as record. So exaggerate all those crescendos up the way and stuff. You ready for the beginning? 2, 1, and go. 1. Okay? And so notice, I kind of gave us a little different definition of balance. What is the musician's responsibility at any given moment? I think it's very important for us to remember. What is the responsibility at any given moment? Are we a primary voice or are we a secondary voice? What do you want us to hear? What do you want us to hear? So dynamics are normally related, not literal. Dynamics are normally related, not literal. Okay, so we just play as written. This time I have the timpani, tuba, and those of you who play the timpani, tuba, and the ascending line. You know, here we go, ready? From the beginning. 1, 2, 1, and go. 1. Please coordinate the notes again. 2, 1, and go. 1. That's kind of basically what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. Now, if you have a score, you see that the flute has an altissimo F. There, starting in the second or so measure. Remember, you only really need 1 or 2 flute players to play that F, and we're still going to hear it. But also that F tends to be extremely sharp. So all you have to do is put down this finger of the regular, just put down the third finger of the regular of the right hand, and it will lower that pitch. Guaranteed it will lower that pitch. Okay? So this time, let's do it again the same way. Everybody's playing, but let's only have 1 or 2 flutes play the high F. Okay? Now play with good common sense this time. Everybody's in, please. Ready? 1, 2, 1, and go. 1. So as you see, we're starting to hear everything. Go to measure 6, please. When I adjudicate this or rehearse this piece, a lot of times we don't hear this part right here, just the clarinets. You have those D, C quarter notes. 1, 2, 1, and go. And 1, do it again. 2, 1, and go. That's very important in measure 6 that we hear that. That's so important. All right, let's have everybody please play. So the rest of the band will do a quick decrescendo. Clarinets will play full. Measure 6. Everybody's in. 1, 2, 1, and go. There you go. All right. So we want to make sure that we do that. So in measure 7, the harmony is telling us to pull back the tempo just a smidge. Let it relax, and then we're going to move forward. Now, how do we successfully execute a crescendo decrescendo? I want you to remember the pyramid of sound, the Francis Macbeth book, Effective Performance in 20th Century Literature. In that book, Macbeth says a piccolo does 1/10 of crescendo, a tuba does 10/10 of crescendo. So you have to think about where you fall in that pyramid. Think about where you fall in that pyramid. So during this whole time, we must think about that. So the higher the timbre that the instrument plays, the less crescendo it must do. To make sure that we maintain a great sonority. Maintain a great sonority. That's just so important. All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward. Look at our next thing is articulation. Articulation is mentioned 3 times on the FBA sheet. In the first box, it's the physical. It's a performance fundamental. In my opinion, the physical is how the tongue moves. And so we've talked about some, the clinicians have talked, other clinicians have talked about a few things with articulations. Then it talks about the interpretive articulation. I think that means how do we treat a note that has an accent, from a hollow accent to tenuto staccato, or anywhere there, or any combination of those. And the clarity. Clarity. I define that as the same distance between all articulated notes. Have clarity. The same distance between all articulated notes. And so as you're working with that with your band, and this is what I do when I rehearse bands, I'll say, you do it. You do it. You do it. Then I'll ask the band, do any of those sound the same? And of course I'll say, okay, which one seems to be the shortest? Which one seems to have hardly no space between the notes? Okay, so experiment. Listen, and then you have to decide. Now, go back to the beginning, man. This time we're going to play the beginning, and some of them that go dee, 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 they're going to play really short. Some of them are going to play do, 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 do. All right, and then hopefully someone will play it correctly. Here, ready? Everybody get it right? Remember this? Here, ready? 1, 2, 1, and go. So if we have dip, 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 we have do, 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 or ba, 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 ba. Which one of those are we going after? Probably going after the third one, right? Going after the third one. So that's so important for us. So remember articulation, those 3 forms of articulation. The physical articulation is performance fundamental, then interpretive, and clarity are technical preparation. Now, remember the key to all good articulation is the quality of the airstream. The key to all good articulation is clarity, is the quality of the airstream. All right. Expression. Music is always going somewhere. Music has a purpose. And we tend to intensify repetitive notes. We tend to intensify repetitive notes. So please go to anacrusis to A. Go to anacrusis to A. Half note before A. Ready? So play on. Here it is. Half note before A. Ready? 1 and go. Sometimes we have to understand that, again, repetitive notes are going somewhere. This time we go anticipate each repetitive note. Here, ready? Same spot. 1 and go. See that again? We start a half note before A. I'll give you 2. Half note before A. I'll give you 2. Ready? 1 and go. Gabe gave us a really good idea on some things about expression. I think that's really cool what he did there. But remember, we tend to intensify repetitive notes. Music is always going somewhere. We tend to intensify repetitive notes. That's so important for us to remember. All right. Now, in my opinion, we find the worth of the composer or arranger not about the melody that they write. And of course, none of these are original melodies, right? Mr. Grumman did not invent any of these melodies. But Mr. Grumman was a master of harmonizing melodies. So it doesn't matter what Grumman piece you might be doing. And I bet some of you will be doing some Grumman this spring, you know. You have to go after everything that's not the melody. Go after everything that's not the melody. So Grumman was a master of the leading tone. Man, if you get inside those second, third clarinet parts, those inner voices, he's got all kinds of leading tones. But he also uses a lot of chromatic movement. So please go to measure 12. Please go to measure 12. Let me hear, please, at measure 12. Let me hear the flute, the bass clarinet, bassoon, very saxophone. Measure 12, please. Here we go, ready? starting on count 3. Ready, 2, and then flutes you come in at 13. Right? Here we go, ready? So we're starting on count 2, count 3 and measure 12. Flutes you come in on count 3 and measure 13. Here we go, I'll give you 2. Ready? Here it is, ready? 1 and go. Come on, please. Those people I just called out, I'll give you 2 beats. So I really need the bass clarinet as soon as Barry Saxon tuba. Ready? You understand? They were starting 2 beats before 13. Flutes will come in the third beat of 13. Ready? I give you 1, 2. Ready? 1 and go. Let's stop here. Ready? We're starting the dotted quarter 8th note in measure 12. Yes? Ready? B-da-dee. Ready? Ready for the suit? Ready? 1 and go. Here we go. Ready? We're starting on count 3 of measure 12. Count 3 of measure 12. Have a dotted quarter 8th note. Is that correct? Measure 12. The bass clarinet. Yeah, here we go. Those people. Here we go. Ready? 13. 13. Here we go. Ready? 13. 13. And flutes you come on count 3. 1, 2, 1, and go. Do it again. I'll play those 2. Here we go. Ready? The same spot. 2, 1, and go. Two beats before 13, ready? 1 and go. Now we're starting 2 beats before 13. Now we're starting 2 beats before 13. Some of you come in at 13, correct? Ready? 2 beats before 13. Some of you enter at 13. Low is correct. Ready? 1 and go. Now here's another very important part of this piece. This is measure 21. This is measure 21. If you have your score, measure 21. May I please hear the bass clarinet, the bassoon, and the bari sax. Ready? Bass clarinet, bassoon, and bari sax. 21, 2, 1, and go. Now, if you're taking me to reinforce that, add euphonium. Please add euphonium. Add. So the same group plus euphonium. Measure 21, ready. 1, 2, 1, and go. Good. Everybody 21. Everybody 21. Make sure you hear that descending line. Ready. 1, 2, 1, and go. Altissimo G. We don't need all the flutes to play that altissimo G. Only need 1 or 2 of them. Just 1 or 2 of you play that altissimo G. Everybody, same spot, ready? 1, 2, 1, and go. Quality of the short note. So the difference between a good band and a really good band is the quality of the short note. And if you don't believe that, go listen to the Marine Band. The only difference between a whole note and an 8th note should be the length of the note, not the quality of the note. So when I'm rehearsing bands, what I'll do, I believe that the tone should be our #1 priority. So what I do is I get the note or the chord sounding good. So maybe I get it sounding good as a whole note. Then I get it sounding good as a dotted half note. Then I get it sounding good as a half note. Then a quarter note. And then we go to the eighth note. So many times though, what happens is that the quality will get different. So remember, in my opinion, a note is too short if we do not have a quality sound and if all the harmony is not heard. So get the note, of course, sounding good, and then work on the length. Make that your first priority. All right, here we go. So transition. Go to letter D, please. In my opinion, D is the transition. We need to pull back the tempo just a little bit. And if you listen to the originals are, I'm sad and I'm lonely. It's really that slow. Now, I don't encourage you to play that part that slow, but I still think we still have to kind of pay tribute to the original folk song. Okay, I really believe that. And so, in addition to having your students listen to it, try to get the same flavor. So we're going to do a little transition here, starting at D. And count 3 people are the key. You ready? We're at D, everybody. You ready? 1, 2, 1, and go. 1 and 1 and. Trying to set up, I'm sad and I'm lonely. Now look, if you have the score, we got to balance the melody. So the melody at the third measure of E is in the flute, the second clarinet, and the first clarinet. Flute, first clarinet, second clarinet. So if you're familiar with the piece, the second clarinet's playing F below the staff. The first clarinet's playing F on the staff. Okay? And the flute is playing the octave above that. Alright, so most of the time, we don't hear a lonely second clarinets, do we? But they're actually the tuba. So we kind of have a mini triangle here, a mini pyramid. And the second clarinet takes up the majority of it. And then the first clarinet will be the middle section, and the flute will be the top. See if we can do that, please. The second clarinet. For maybe just randomly assigned dynamics. Second clarinet will be fortissimo, first clarinet will be forte, and the flute will be basso forte. Are you ready? 1 B before the third bar B. 1 and 2 and go. Let's have just a second clarinet ready. Just a second clarinet ready. 1 and 2 and go. Come on, second clarinet. I think you can give us more. Ready? 1, 2 and go. More. Let's have the first clarinet. The first clarinet, you're going to sit right on top of that. So you're going to be softer than that. 1 and go. We're adding. So that means the second clarinet should still play. Ready? 1 and 2 and go. Very good. Add the flute, please. Add the flute. Flute, you're going to be the softest of all. Ready? 1 and 2 and go. Good. So even when it's just a melody like that, even though it's a woodwind melody, we have to think about the pyramid of sound to get the right sonority. Now everybody go to E, please. I'm sorry, at F. Now at F, he changes the color, the timbre. He has tenor sax, he has French horn, adds euphonium to that same melody. I think we should focus in on the French horn sound. Focus in on the French horn sound. So that group, please, here we go. We're 1 beat before F, and French horn, you're going to lead us. Here you go, ready? 1 beat before F, 1 and 2 and go. know, I don't care. So here's measure 54. This is 1 before G. Those 3 quarter notes, in my opinion, the measure before G, that's where the tempo changes. We're sad and are lonely, but Sydney puts a smile on our face. And think about it, when you're sad and lonely, how fast are you really moving? No. Okay? But when Sydney comes in, she lights up the room. She gets us all excited. So I think those 3 anacrusis notes at the G. So who's the trumpet player? You're going to play it, please, so we're going to give you 1. 1, 2, 3, and 1. Good, okay? Now, man, what we're going to do this time, everybody, we're starting 1 beat before F, and then we're going to make that transition, ready? I'm probably out of time now. 1 beat before F, everybody's in. 1 and 2 and go. Says more rhythmic because we had the percussion section. It does get a little bit boom tick, boom tick, boom tick, boom tick. So we have a little more involvement there. Listen, my time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, we're going to welcome Kelly Dorsey to the stage. Everybody stand up real quick. Take a quick stretch because we're going to do a quick change up here. The next part is going to be for smaller instrumentations. Here we go.
Okay, so we are going to be talking about limited instrumentation. Thanks for hanging with us. We're going to talk about some do's and some don'ts. And I'm using only the first 2 rows of the ensemble right now. Thank you. Here's a typical small school instrumentation, or large school with small band. So as you can see, I'm using that here. I've got 1 tuba, I have 1 bari sax, 1 euphonium, a French horn, bass clarinet, 2 trombones, 4 trumpets. Right, we have 4 trumpets. I have 3 clarinets, 2 altos, and 4 flutes. So that's what we're using right now. So if you are in the position where you know right off that you're going to have a limited instrumentation, you need to be smart from the very beginning. I knew for sure that I needed more tuba players this year in my program. So what did I do? I started some. In the high school, you have to be smart. You have to take care of that and not wait until you're caught and then, I have to reclassify. So start your kids right from the beginning. Do whatever it takes, offer them some pizza candy, pizza party, whatever. Get them on board, it doesn't matter. It can be done, you just have to do it. But remember, you have to build your band from the bottom up. And I always tell my tubas, they are the heroes of the band. Because without them, you can have listen, and you all need to understand this, when you go to NPA, you can have a really great sounding band, and if you have no tubas, it's not going to sound great. You can have an average, mediocre band and have great tubas, and they're going to sound fantastic. Because when you see a car drive, or hear a car drive by with a very loud stereo, what do you hear? The high pitch or the boom, boom, boom? That's what I tell my kids. Well, you like hearing that boom, boom, boom. Well, that's you. You be the hero. Without you, we can't flourish. With you, you're the team, and you are the anchor. Well, they like that. They like that. So here's some options. When you're talking about rescoring some things, you can switch some saxophones over to bassoon or oboe, flutes to tuba. They use the same kind of air. Saxes to baritone, trombone, trumpets to French horn. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to fly through this just a little bit, give Alex plenty of time to do his thing. Some other options. We can take care of, could slide oboes. If you have an oboe solo, that can be cued in a muted trumpet with a straight mute, or you can give it to the clarinet part. You have a trombone part, it can be doubled in the baritone, French horn, bassoon, tenor sax, bass clarinet. They're all kind of in that same range. That's what you're looking for. Tubas, bari sax, bass clarinet, clarinet trumpet, alto sax, French horn. Okay. You can also do some more interchangeable instrumentation, flutes to oboe. You can split up the clarinets to help with the French horns and the trumpets. You can have baritones, can cover a second, third trombone, that sort of thing. Okay. Oh, and I kind of skipped over that. Let me back up. You see the little tips down there at the bottom. You can change the scoring, but you cannot change the voicing. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But another thing that if you're not really sure, you haven't done this much, or you haven't done much arranging, a very easy tip, grab a stock arrangement of marching band and look at where the parts are doubled. And these are all the same things that we've been talking about. Okay. Here's just a chart, and this is in your handout if you go to that online. It gives you all the transpositions. Feel free to print that out, put it on your podium. Especially if you're a first or second year teacher and you haven't gotten that down, you can look at it and go, oh, okay, I got this. And, whatever, tape it onto your stand so it doesn't go flying off anywhere. All right, now let's talk about some traditional seating. There's nobody that says, well, you have to have your tubas on the outside. You have to have your flutes on the front row. You have to have your oboes on the front row. I mean, how many of you have had that, and no offense to any of our oboes here, because I know that didn't happen in this program. How many of you have had those really loud beginning band 6th grade oboes that are louder than everybody else? Oh yeah, see? Put them in the back row for the concert. They sound great, and then they can fill up the horn and have some success. Nobody says they have to be on the front row. And then mamas and daddies are happy they can hear the clarinets too. All right. So, let's see. What we're working with is the sonatina for band, which I'm going to talk about in just for a second. But for seating, I'm going to give you an example of moving that over. We're just going to play the intro to sonatina for band. Again, we're only using the first 2 rows. And right now, I have all the woodwinds up front and have all the brass in the second row. And my saxophones are just going to be obnoxiously loud. Like, you're obnoxious sibling, mom, dad. I hope you don't have any interest in it. Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now, we're going to do that again, but they're going to play just as loud as they did before. They're not going to change anything. We're going to slide these guys in just a little bit. Okay. Give them just a second to get set up. And here we go. Ready? Do the same thing, please. 1, 2, 3. Did you guys change the way you played? Not at all. You promise? You think you promise? Did they stick out over the band? Could you hear them as loudly? You see what a difference your seating can make. All right, don't be afraid to change things. And as a side note, let me please tell you, on the stage and in the warm-up room, make sure before you go, you tell your percussionists, set it up the way we set it up in the band room, not the way it is on stage. You do it according to you. Okay, because I've come on stage before, and the percussion is all the way back against the back, and the band is all the way here, and there's about a 20-foot gap between them. No, we don't want to do that. So I would send somebody that you trust with them and say, kind of remember, these are do's and don'ts, things that you need to do. Now, I put them in this order according to how this piece was arranged. You do not have to keep the same seating on the first song that you do on the second song. How many of you have been to a concert and you've seen the band get up and shuffle around in between pieces? Yeah, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, another little side note, if you have the numbers, have the kids switch parts on different songs. I didn't do that on different songs, but I had a Veterans Day concert and they were assigned to certain parts for this one, and then the Christmas concert, those that were playing first were now playing third, gave some of the younger players a chance to play a different part, and then it also told me where they needed to be for MPA. And then we will switch it up again for a Christmas concert or anything else that we do. I'm trying to kind of give them a little bit more experience. Now, in my band room, I only have one band, it's 9 through 12. I don't have a wind ensemble and a concert band, so I don't have the luxury of giving those younger kids that experience, so I have to do that part switch. But I think if you're smart, and I think a lot of people do, they'll do that even in their top groups, because you still have that disparity of level, no matter what you do. All right, so now we're talking about Sonatina for Band by Frank Erickson. If you have the score, you will notice that what I did was I went through here, and you see there's 2 columns there. There's the score requirements, and then the parts that I had covered based on the instrumentation that I'm using. The ones that are highlighted, that's where I just didn't have anybody to cover those parts. So, I really want to play this piece. Well, now what do? So, I went through, and I took a look at who's covering what parts. And again, I noticed that I highlighted the French horn parts because I only had one French horn. That's what I was worried about first because that was kind of the least amount. And I noticed that when I went through this, guess what? Third trombone, euphonium is covering the first horn part. The second horn part's covered by first trombone, second clarinet, first alto. You see how that's working? Whatever you gotta do, make a copy of your score, write it in. I just sort of did an N for trombone. I went N1. You know, it was written 1, 3, 5. This is in the horn parts, all in the same part. So this is N1. This is N2. This is N3. And then you see a pattern. Oh, well, look at that. They cover this part. They cover this part. So guess what? Let's see. I don't have any tenor saxes. Who covers that? Trombone parts and bass clarinet. Well, I have that. That's covered. I don't have any oboes. Well, it's covered in the flute and it's covered in the different clarinet parts. That's good. I don't have, let's see, well, I did tenor sax. Okay, so all of that is covered. I think I can play this piece. Yes, I can. All right. And then I also kind of looked at that and decided, well, maybe certain players need to be sitting closer to each other so they can kind of hear those parts. A lot of times I will take, and Alex is going to talk about this in his scoring as well, you'll go through and highlight different things. And sometimes in rehearsal, for example, the Banks and Grays, that's what, 4 parts. And I said, raise your hand if you have this part, or when I call your name, you're group 1. Raise your hand when I call your name, you're group 2. Group 1 was all the different instruments that played that one part, and it was all in every section, the way that it's scored. And I said, okay, group 1 sit here, group 2 sit here, group 3 here, group 4 here. And I was able to rehearse each of those groups separately. Because until I did that, they were having trouble hearing how it was going, because some of the younger players, I mean, it was all spread out. It's like I could have a clarinets player, and most of the parts were covered. So you can do that for rehearsal. I don't know that I would do that for a performance, but you can do that for rehearsal. So, now, let's talk about voicing. Like that. Okay. We have a couple of different options here. So we're going to say, for example, here we go, guys, measure 17. We're going to play measure 17 as written. And we're going to say we only have one trumpet player, so one trumpet playing. Here we go, it's 17. Everyone? 1, 2, 3. The one trumpet has the melody, and if they can, man, I only have one trumpet, they're probably not going to be as strong as she was, because she's kind of holding back, but still not enough. But in a typical situation, that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to say, who do I have that can help these guys? Well, I got 4 flutes. Yes, 4 flutes. All right, flutes. I've written it out for flutes now. Ready? Here we go. Play. Yep, the first one. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear the melody? Was it good? Yeah. I saw your faces. You're going, some are going, oh God, please stop. Yes, that's called, you can change scoring, but you cannot change the voicing. I completely changed the voicing. They are way too high. All right, let's take it down an octave. See if this helps. Ready? Is there another option? Yes, there is. Clarinets. Now, your trumpet and your clarinet. 1, 2. Then with the flutes, I think it's going to be harder for the trumpet to hear those flutes in that lower register. And I think, and notice, I wanted to point out real quick, I hope that you noticed when Everett was up here and he was trying to demonstrate some things, he also threw in quick little things. All right, sit up straight and went. He didn't make a big deal about it, he just added it. Please do that when you're teaching. Don't cover one concept at a time. You're covering multiple concepts at a time. So when I started them, I said, flutes or clarinets, your trumpet, trumpet, your clarinets. That's how we're going to blend that line. If we'd had more time, we would have spent some more time on doing that. But you see where changing the voicing makes a huge difference. Okay? And how many of you have students that like to arrange? Where they said, hey, will you write this out for me? Say, no, you do it. But you got to teach them about that whole voicing thing. Okay. Now, let's look at balance issues. So now we're going to look at measure 9. Play measure 9 for a minute. And that is very exposed, the way that is written. And it's going to scare them to death. But Mr. Erickson does such a fine job. He really took the guesswork out of it for me. He put cues in here. So the alto sax is going to play a cue for the clarinet, second clarinet, because first clarinet's doing the melody with the flute. Again, I would have gone back and spent time with that clarinet and flute and blended those sounds together. Just, it's more important. It's not just important to hear the line, it's to hear the clarity of the line. Okay, and then we have the horns. If I had more than one horn, they would have cues for the second, third clarinet. The baritone has cues for the bass clarinet. Now, let's do that clear cue. If you hear a difference. This is measure 9, 1, 2, 3. So there's a little more bottom. Do you think they feel a little more comfortable about what they're doing? Yeah, that's going to help a good bit on that. All right, measure 25. It's the same sort of thing. Measure 25 real quick. Wait, trust, everybody's at 25. Sorry, they have a hard time hearing us because we're facing that. Sorry, 25, ready? Probably knew it because you played the piece. So I can't hear that, but that's as strong as those guys can do. And so I only have one first, 1 second. So, but the thirds are hanging out, so I'm just going to let them go. He's now going to put that in between them, and all of the trumpets are going to play that. Here we go. If somebody's hanging out and somebody else is having trouble, let them help. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody says, when you only play first clarinet, you only play first trumpet. Look, I will rewrite stuff all the time. If I have somebody that's not covering this, here, you've got to play these 2 measures. Just make sure that it blends and it's not sticking out, and you will be just fine. Okay. So we're going to move here to Mr. Kaminsky in just a second. So here's some scoring options for you. If you know that you have a small group, you need to look for pieces that have block scoring, like 2 trumpet parts, 1 clarinet part, 1 horn part, no more than 2 bottom voices. Now this piece obviously has more than those. It has 3 horn parts, 3 clarinet parts. But I studied that score first, and I made sure that I can cover those parts. You can, if you have a place where the first clarinet's up in the stratosphere on a march, overbalancing the band, leave one up, take everybody else down. You can do that. If your lower players can't handle something, don't be afraid to reassign something. And I just kind of covered all of that. If you're going to do some major changes in this piece, it does a woodwind choir, then a brass choir. If you've got some things covering, write those cues in the score. Don't let your judges guess. Okay, and then that's going to help you a lot. I know that there are a lot of people that will go, I have to reclassify because I only have 30 people on the stage. Well, we only have 20. And we've covered that, and if we spent some time on that, we could make that piece sound really nice. I've seen it, I've heard it, time and time after again. If you don't have the instrumentation, make it happen. That's on you, that is not on anybody else. Go and recruit, do whatever you have to do. I had a saxophone player that just started in the middle of the year last year. By the end of the year, she was on that spring concert. It can be done. Don't expect them all to come from the middle school if you're just a high school teacher. Have a beginning band in your area, in your band. Whatever you have to do, that's what you do. If it's somebody that's playing football, okay, hang out in here until we can get to you, but you're still part of this band by golly, and you can play tuba on this concert, whatever it is. So I hope I gave you a few little nuggets there that will help. Feel free to upload that handout, and we'll have this up on the website at some point. So thank you.
We're going to bring Kaminsky to the stage. Going to Douglas. Really needs no introduction in Florida or anywhere in the country around. He's going to be doing American River songs. American River songs. Let's welcome Mr. Kaminsky, please.
How many of you haven't played like an half hour? You guys haven't played? Right. Why don't you play? Just go ahead. Just play. Like, it's okay. Go ahead and play. What I'm going to do is really the things that I'm going to share are reinforcing pretty much of what's already been shared. So I'm going to go through this PowerPoint, which is not on the website. However, my notes are on the website if you click on the presenter notes, and also there's the segment of the score that I'm going to be working on. That's also there, and you can blow it up so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so going through this really quick, how to fix it. That's the segment of American River songs that we're going to do. And the reason I'm doing that section is because when I hear this piece played, that's probably one of the most problematic segments that I hear. Okay, what's broken? Clarity of line, which is what we're going to focus on, which is also called transparency. When I first went to Lincoln High School, Jack Crew was there, and we were together for the first semester. I learned a tremendous amount of knowledge about that term, transparency, as he mentored me. What would cause the lack of clarity of blindfolds, this is kind of what I said, is the performance fundamentals. So really, this needs to be reinforced all the time. If you don't have those performance fundamentals, it's going to be difficult to achieve the clarity of the lines. And that's actually, if you look at my handout, right at the top, you'll see the two boxes from the FEA adjudication sheet, and I underlined the first four aspects of performance fundamentals that are addressed: tone, quality, intonation, balance, and blend. And really, that sheet, and we talked about this a year ago when we did this clinic, that sheet is a great outline to clarify pedagogical and musical standards that we're all trying to achieve. On the back, you have a rubric that basically explains everything. Okay, so, and I'm not going to go through to the details of tone, quality, and intonation because those things have been addressed in the past. But I will mention something about balance. Okay, so okay, so we have tone, quality, intonation. The third term there is balance. To achieve clarity and transparency, musicians must be aware of their role in the texture or the chord. And what I do for balance is I assign percentages. So in the case of the segment we're going to do in American River Songs, I do 4-3-2-1, 40% melody, 30% counter melody, 20% accompaniment half notes, 10% accompaniment whole notes. And again, that's in the notes. So once you take care of these things, then you can achieve blend. And that's actually from the rubric on the FDA sheet. But essentially, good blend should result in a loss of identity. Good blend should result in a loss of identity. Okay, so there you go. All right, so we're going to be at measure 89 to 108 of American River Songs. And the score is there, but I'm not going to make you try to read that. That's on the FMEA app. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is isolate lines. And at the bottom of my handout, if you're looking at that, you see my rehearsal notes. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about my score is you'll notice that I highlight, and I'm a big person as far as highlighting. Yellow is primary, blue is secondary, green is tertiary, orange is my bass line, pink is dynamics. It really helps me rehearse. It's sort of a lesson plan that I use when I do that. Okay, so when we isolate lines, what we want to do is we want to tune and blend the lines to create the color that you want. And then while you're doing that, address musical elements like crescendos, diminuendos. If you fix the lines without doing the musical elements, it's going to change when you add the musical elements. So it's important that you do them simultaneously. I'm going to demonstrate all this in just a second. Talk about preparing musical moments later. And then number two, really is a two-step process. Isolate the lines and then balance the lines. You usually have melodic, melodic accompaniment material, and what you want to do is add one line at a time until you put the puzzle back together again. And then you just kind of repeat that process. All right, so I'll just leave any one of these up, so we'll just do that. All right, so let's look at measure 89. Measure 89 of American River Songs. And what I'm first going to do is I'm going to have them play measure 89 to measure 95. Okay, so we're just going to do 89 to 95, guys. And everybody together, and then I'll start rehearsing. So basically, this is how I would rehearse it. If I came in to rehearse the Apopka band, and this is actually the first time I've been with these guys. I'm Mr. Kaminsky, nice to meet you. And we're going to rehearse American River Songs. Okay, so here, just pick up to 89, right? Pick to 89. I'll give you 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. Purposely to don't play it too well the first time so that we can fix it. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to isolate the melody. Where is the melody? The melody is in the trombones. Okay. So trombones, we're going to have you guys are in charge. Okay. Now the rest of you are listening to. This is going to be the #1 priority listening target for you. Okay. So here's trombones. 1 and 2 and 3. Think about taking us on a musical journey, all right? So let's say that we're going to go all the way to 2 measures before 95 will be what we call the top of the phrase, okay? That's kind of a musical moment that we want to take the listener on this journey and take us to that point. So each measure should intensify. Think about intensifying until we get to that point. Make sense? Let's try that. And also, let's go ahead and stretch the anacrusis, which is the pickup note. I like that. Ivan loves to use that word, and I stole that from him. Okay, anacrusis. And if you have an administrator that comes in and uses those terms, you get like both bones. So we're going to really play that low B flat nice and full. It takes us into the E flat. Ready? 1 and 2 and. One more time. That's it. That's the idea. That's the idea. So I'm going to take it out of time. That's good. And here's the other thing. The key to artistic expression is really many times in the anacrusis, or the point right before you hit the peak. What happens right before prepares us for what's about to happen, for the moment, right? So that B flat is preparing us for the beginning of that phrase. 2 and. Raise your hand for they got louder. Raise your hand for they got softer. Raise your hand for they stay the same. Okay. And by the way, I'm always asking and probing the band. I'm always asking them what they do to make sure they're engaged and listening. Okay. So what I want you guys to do is when you get to that 3/4 measure, see the black notes? The black notes are what's moving that phrase. So I want you to think about energizing the black notes. Okay, so one more time. Sounds really good. We're making it great. Ready? Same thing. 1 and 2 and. Right, 2. You can breathe here. Now 1. Crescendo. Keep going. Here's your Bible. Got it? So, a little better? Yes? So now we're going to add, actually not add, we're going to listen to the secondary part, which is flutes, oboes, and clarinets. So let's hear you guys, and we'll go ahead and do the pickup even though some of them are slurred. Okay? So let's do that pickup, 89, 2, and 3. Who's our first church parent over there? Right here. Can you play me your long C? Okay. And then please play me your B flat concert. Can you? Okay. Push it. Push it. And push it. Good. One time here. Push it. Good. We're going to play that one. Oh, did you guys also play? No? Yes? You did. Okay, so let's do that. And I don't usually tell them, but we don't have time, so I'm telling them. You don't play? We're going to do it anyway. Go. Push in. Push in. Push it in. Push it a little bit. Push it a little bit. And push it a little bit. I forgot what flute professor told me this, but there's nothing, well, I hate to say this way, but there's nothing more annoying than flat flutes. So, and of course we don't have to worry about that when they play high, but when they play middle and low, like here. Okay, so let's do this one more time. This is 89, our counter melody with a pickup. And then flutes, when you go down, blow the air faster, so the pitch doesn't go down. 1 and 2 and 3. Good. I want you to just make sure that your ears, in fact, look at each other and find somebody that you're going to listen to when you play, like your best friend. If your enemy's over there, don't pick up. Got it? So I want you to, you're going to play a duet with somebody on the other section. You got it? All right, here we go. One more time. So this is a duet. Oboes, I didn't leave you out. It's just fast. 1 and 2 and duet. Who's in charge? The trombone, right? The trombone. You playing jazz? This is the bonus. You play sax, okay? No. All right, here we go. Ready? Pick up 1 and 2. You're in charge, trombones. Let us know something's about to happen. So when they play that whole note that's tied over, I should know something's about to happen here. And that adds more energy to the entire phrase. All right, same spot. So especially the horn, a little more energy. Ready? Big breath. Beautiful. Save it. That was great. So I want you to do that at the end of the whole note. But that was really good. 2, ready, and... Clarinets down to wind ensemble. Apopka, how many of you are in the wind ensemble? Like the Apopka wind ensemble, not the full band. Raise your hand if that's you. Like, remember, like on the Skype? The small group, like one on a part, remember? We did it on the Skype, you couldn't hear me? Yeah, got it, good. So, flutes and clarinets and oboes, this is going to be just the wind ensemble people. Everybody else play again, same group, okay? So trombones, all the horns, all the altos, so you're all playing. I want all the trombones, okay? Just one on a part and the flutes, and then you guys play a little softer. 1 and 2, and trombones in charge. And then, now I'm gonna move fast forward. I want everybody to play flutes, clarinets, and oboes, but I want it to sound like it's just one on a part. Got it? All right. The best musicians can play really well soft. That's hard to do. Okay? Take a fortissimo breath. You're gonna play pianissimo. Okay, here we go. Ready? All trombones, altos, horns, you're in. 1 and 2 and. Keep working for that fast slide technique, so the legatos, you know, it's kind of an oxymoron. You got to move your slide really fast, so it sounds like an alto trombone, not in trombone. All right, here we go. 89, accompaniment. 2, big breath. And so I actually moved the trombones forward and moved the trumpets back to fix the balance, and it took care of it. And so what I would do in this instance, and Jeremy, I would also encourage you to do that because of the instrumentation of the band, is maybe put the trombones in the third row, and then you'll get more of that line. Okay? Good. The last thing that I've only got like 5 minutes is preparing musical moments. Let me see if I got it before. Yeah, those will be my final thoughts. You can kind of look at those. But basically, what I want everybody to do now is I want you to tell us a story. We're going to start in the same place and keep going. I want you to tell us a story when you're playing. So think about when you were in elementary school. I'm just making this up on the spot. I have no idea. So you were in elementary school. It's recess. How many of you enjoyed recess in elementary school? Good. So that's happening. Okay. So I want you to think about like you're walking outside, and then like the most fun thing that you did at recess, and just tell a story, okay? Here we go. Beginning, everybody 89, everybody 89, and we'll keep going. And I'm gonna get out of the way. A little more trombone, please, when you go high, a little softer. 1 and 2, and tell a story. So don't just listen to the melody. The kids need to know where the priority is melody, but then you have to peel off the layers, fix the layers, tune them, balance, blend them, put it back together, and then you'll get more of the clarity and balance you're looking for. Okay? I wish I had more time for that. So thank you guys.
Kaminsky. Thank you. Hey, let's please give the Apopka High School Band a big round of applause. Listen, we have come here for over 2 hours. Thank you so much. We'll see you throughout the conference. Thank you so much.
And before we go, real quick, on behalf of the Florida Music Education Association, if I can have all of our clinicians come on up, we're going to present them with a nice token of our appreciation. Give them one more round of applause. This is the last word that we so much for bringing students